Hi, I'm Parker.
And I'm Mike. And this is the Graphic Novel Podcast.
Welcome to our new podcast on the art of the graphic novel. Mike is the author of 10 books and produced Comics TV, which was a weekly TV show on comics for 7 years back in the 90s.
Back in the olden days. Together, we produced Northwest Brew Talk about the beer industry in the Northwest for 2 years. Now we're back, and this show is all about graphic novels.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Graphic Novel Podcast. How you doing this week?
I'm doing good, Parker. How about you?
I'm doing fabulous.
Good. Well, I think we got another great show coming to our listeners.
Yep. Once again, excited for the show.
Yeah, we've got some good stuff.
Actually, this show's kind of deep. These couple books that we're going to talk about are kind of deep, and
they are, and the one cuts deep too. I mean, we seem to find things that tie to us somehow.
I know it's so weird. So the two books that we're talking about today were both sent to us from the authors. Or was this one?
This one's sent from Gallery 13.
Okay,
publisher.
but sent to us and say, hey, check this out, and if you like it, then give us a review. I don't even think they said if you like it, but give us a review if you feel so inclined to do so. And so we did. We actually both. I think I love both of them. And I can't remember where I was going with this one, but yes, the way that they tie into our lives is, I don't know, funny. Yeah. I know some podcasts that you listen to, people are like, well, I intentionally try and keep my life out of it. And I'm like, yeah, we don't do that. Yeah. We tie everything else back into ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but it's kind of funny the way everything, and these, like you said, these are just, we read them and said, they were just like the first ones that we were sent.
Yeah. These are beginning of
and yet still we can tie them to ourselves.
Yeah, getting some review copies is great because it helps us to promote some stuff that's coming out that's really good. We've got these two that we read, and we've got a couple other ones that from a couple other publishers that we're going to just mention. I read the previews of them, and they're pretty good.
Yeah.
But we've got some
exciting news. Yeah. We got a Patreon up. We just started it out, so there's not all the details on there yet, but we have some plans to send out, stickers and books and giveaways, and we'll have some. We're going to start interviewing some creators, and when we do that, we're going to have some special, stuff that gets cut out because you can only have so long of an episode,
until people get bored.
Exactly. Like, I'm only in the car for this long. I can't listen to. Yeah. So we'll have some bonus material that we're going to have just for our Patreon supporters. So I think it's going to be really awesome. And I want people to be able to support us.
Yeah. It'll be at patreon.com/graphic novel podcast.
There you go. Right there. So find us.
Yeah. It'll be great. It'll help us out just to cover our costs. I mean, in November, we're going to be going to a show it'll be our first show as a graphic novel podcast in Seattle.
Yes.
It's going to be a bunch of some of the creators that we're going to be talking about are going to be there. So it's going to be very cool. Yep. We'll meet some of them. Hopefully we can get a few interviews while we're there.
That would be really awesome.
Yeah. So that'll be very cool. That was when I did Comics TV, going to shows and doing interviews. I wasn't as good doing interviews, even though I did. I don't know.
Yeah, but you've practiced. You've had some practice.
Yeah, but even then, I wasn't as good as it. But it was still great, just interviewing people.
Yeah,
and meeting them. Sometimes
I really don't like that, like an interview type format. Like I feel like sometimes it's important to have like some kind of layout of things you'll talk about, especially if somebody isn't really. We've had interviews on our former podcast where it was like, I'm just going to ask you a question, and they just say yes or no. They don't.
Yeah.
But I much prefer to just have conversations with people and just connect and share that. So that's what I'm kind of hoping to get out of some of these conversations.
Well, these are you're talking about Northwest Brew Talk, and when we started out, it was like we had to have some kind of format so we knew what to talk about. But as it went on, it expanded more.
Oh, absolutely. And you did all the interviews there. So you could definitely hear just in your, I don't know why we're talking about our former podcast, but you could hear the way that you matured as an interviewer.
Thanks,
so that was really cool.
But sometimes, like you said, sometimes the whether it was a brewer or the owner or an artist, sometimes they're not speakers. They don't want to really talk. They have to talk because they have to promote their materials or whatever they have.
Right.
And they don't want to do it, but
Yeah.
So it's tough sometimes trying to pull things, like pulling teeth out of people. All right. But we're going to do a couple, we'll do a couple of our previews first that we have. And let's see. The first one we have is, where did it go?
What's hiding from you? You know how things like to hide.
Yeah. Oh, it's in the email. What do you got? Okay, this is from Koyama Press. And the first one is a book called Stunt. It is 72 pages, 2-color, coming out this month of September. And what it is a stunt double is hired by an actor to serve as his doppelganger in order to sabotage his career. So senior double is often viewed as an ill omen, a portent of bad luck, and a harbinger of death. Hiring a professional double, an actor spurs on his own demise as he and his double explore the depths of degradation and self-destruction. And it is done by Michael DeForge, who lives and works in Toronto, Ontario, as a cartoonist and a commercial illustrator. It is
sounds interesting.
It was pretty wild. The art is funky. I mean, you could see this picture here. This is what the entire story is like.
Wow.
Sometimes the character they were exaggerated, like visions of people and stuff.
Right.
But the story is very cool. I liked it. I thought it was good. It's something definitely to check out. Stunt. This one here is from Titan Comics. It's Atar Gull. It's a hardcover about dark side of slavery and revenge for the fans of Django Unchanged, from the award-winning author of The Death of Stalin. It's about slavery in Jamaica, and we just got a preview of it, a few pages, but artwork was really good, and it was definitely another deep, bad subject that they're exploring here.
Right.
But it looked like it had it could be a good book.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Cool. We'll have to watch out for that then.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Did it say when that one's coming out?
I don't know.
Did the other one say
this month?
Oh, September 11th.
Oh, okay. So that one should be out now. Yeah. All right. So, what book do we want to start with here?
I think we're going to start with Frogcatchers.
All right, Frogcatchers. It's a book that's coming out September 24th. Should be out right around the time this airs. And it's by Jeff Lemire. He's an Eisner Award winner. And
really?
New York Times best-selling author. And what Frogcatchers is about, you look at the cover and the first few pages, and you're like, this is kind of weird. Kid catching frogs under a bridge in like this little pool of water. A man wakes up alone in a strange room with no recollection of who he is or how he got there. The padlocked doors and the barren lobby reinforce the strangeness of this place. This is, as he reads from an old-fashioned keychain beside his bed, the Edgewater Hotel. Even worse, something ominous seems to be lurking in one of the rooms. Frogcatchers is from Gallery 13. It's hardcover, $22.99. And it tells the haunting story of a surreal descent into one man's psychosis. So, again, it looks like, just this weird backwoods story at first about some kid catching frogs. And I'm like, this is kind of boring.
Really?
Yeah, the beginning, it's like, his artwork is interesting.
I love his artwork. Love it.
Very sketchy.
Yeah.
Sketchy. It looks like he uses like water.
Not sketchy, like
watercolor
weird.
looks. Yeah. Oh yeah. But like the coloring is like watercolored, like grays.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 2 pop-up pages of color, and that's it. The whole book is just there's a few pages near the end.
Yeah.
It starts to color as the book goes towards the end.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much just black and white grays. Very sketchy artwork. but very good. Again, I like too. It's his style. What did you think?
I loved it. I loved it from the very beginning. I mean, there's not a lot of there's no dialogue really in the first. I don't even know how many pages, but the first several pages there's no dialogue. So you're just watching the images, and it's creating this story, and you're just following along, and it's just you have to kind of. I mean, I kind of made up in my head what I thought was happening and where it was going to go. And yeah, I feel like I guessed it right away.
Well, here it says,
but I don't like, at what point did you think that you were like, oh, okay, this is what's going on?
Well, here, I didn't even catch this. Here, I'm looking at the information. It says a literary fantasy that tackles the interior destruction caused by dementia through the dynamic lens of a surreal adventure story.
Okay.
So the dementia makes it even more understanding.
Right.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right. Yeah. So, yeah.
Something.
You don't quite know what it is. You kind of, by the time you're done with it, you get an idea. But seeing that it says here it's about dementia, that it makes even more sense.
Right.
But yes, it's this guy and then this boy, and he's in this hotel, and they're talking to each other, and they're walking along, and then they kind of, you kind of get what's happening.
I feel like I got it long before that.
What did you?
Yeah. You feel like when they're together?
Well, at first, I wasn't.
I don't know. I don't want to give it away.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So awesome book. Loved it.
Yeah, I have not yet known anybody directly that has had. Oh wait.
Yes, you did.
Well, yeah. Your grandmother.
My grandmother, but not. I mean, she was kind of further along before you met her, so it wasn't. Yeah. But I mean, the difference between when now I had moved away from home, and she was, herself. Yeah, and then when I came back home, I don't know, it was probably 5 years between when I saw her, because actually our oldest was a baby and she was still,
really?
In her normal self. Mm-hmm. And then, so probably within less than 5 years, it was just a downhill change. Yeah. And she didn't recognize me. She didn't know who I was. She didn't know who anybody around her was. And it's, I can't imagine living that life. I would never want to live that life, honestly.
Yeah, and your mother took care of her until the end.
Oh yeah.
And the first, I mean, we were living with your parents for 6 months, mm-hmm. and during that time, she declined quickly.
Yes.
When we first got there, she used to sit and watch the baseball games. They put her in front of Mariners games and stuff. Right. And she didn't know who I was, but your mother would tell her things. But
you were like that guy or something.
Yeah. But I mean, within 4 months, was it?
Not even. Yeah, I think we moved at the beginning of July, and she had died by the end of August. So,
was it that long?
Yeah, it was very short.
Oh wow! Yeah, it was quickly. She just went from sitting there watching there to being laying in bed and finally passing away.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was quick. And the only other person I knew was my friend Bob. His father-in-law had dementia, and there were times where he would have to. They had to take his car keys away at one point, but there were times where they had to go find him because they didn't know where he went.
Right. He would just take off.
Yeah. He would take off. He was going somewhere, and mm-hmm. he knew where he was going because it was probably 50 years before that he was thinking of.
Right.
And they had to take his car keys away, which is a common thing because, first of all, they probably can't drive well, but also they're going someplace and they don't know where they're going.
Right.
Or they're going someplace that's not there anymore.
Right.
But yeah, it's not a good thing. I mean, I've heard Alzheimer's, dementia. They're working on medications that might help that.
Mm-hmm. And actually, my grandfather had dementia as well.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. We didn't see it in the same way. But
oh, really? How come?
Well, I think that it was exacerbated by the medication because of he was given something. But he had a brain injury, and then they gave him this medication, and so it like induced the dementia. And it was a big mess.
Which grandfather?
Grandpa.
Oh, okay.
On my
the
father's side.
The other one. Okay, yeah.
The other one. Yeah, no, my grandfather on my mother's side died from surgery complications.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That grandfather too, from the time I first met him until he passed away, was completely different too.
Yeah.
Even when we were living here and we'd gone to visit, he knew who you were. And
yeah, absolutely.
So that kind of, didn't see him that often, but by the time, went to.
Yeah, we went up and visited him in the nursing home that he was staying in, and he wasn't even verbal at that point.
Yeah, it was
really
pretty sad.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Frogcatchers by Jeff Lemire. Awesome book.
Loved it.
Hardcover book. The artwork is great, and the story is it's a compelling story. It's very good. It's a good read. It's an easy read. It's not like there's a lot of text or anything. Like, you read it and you get this great story, and it's cool. It's kind of a
sci-fi,
kind of a mystery thing. Yeah, sci-fi kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, it's definitely entertaining. Liked it a lot.
Me too.
All right. And now we're going even darker into a darker, deep hole.
Even darker and even more personal, I feel like.
It definitely is. More so for you, but it is for both of us. So what's this book?
This is Liminal State by Maria Photinakis. Maria Photinakis is an illustrator and comic book artist exploring autobiographical narratives about resilience, alienation, self-discovery, and immigrant experiences. Her professional background is in journalism, and she started making comics just in 2014. She self-published several zines and mini comics, including a young adult horror in space. Horror in Space, Red Flag. And has been published in several successfully crowd-funded anthologies, including Boundless #1, a science education anthology, Subcultures, and Why Faith. She's currently developing a graphic novel about generational trauma and her family's experiences in the Greek Civil War. Maria lives in Waltham, Massachusetts, and enjoys traveling the world with her husband and daughter and sketching their adventures.
So, what is Liminal State about?
Summary. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Liminal State is an autobiographical, semi-abstract comic about drowning in grief and postpartum anxiety trauma at the same time. It's an intensely personal work for her, based on her own experiences. 3 years ago, when her beloved father died after a month-long coma, and she had her first child via traumatic birth, all within the same year.
Yeah, that sounds, first of all, close to home for us.
Very close to home. Surprisingly close to home.
It is a lot. It's almost like there's probably a lot of people that have had the same thing.
Oh, well, there absolutely are. Okay, so I was also a C-section mom. I don't want to give too much detail away about the story, but
well, we'll back up before that. My dad had lung cancer, and then he went into remission.
Right.
And then in 2009, I don't know if the cancer came back, but something happened, and he changed, and he went downhill quickly.
Yes.
We were living in the city of Buffalo, and my parents lived in the suburbs, but we ended up going over there every night.
At my demand.
At your demand. We went over there every night.
I loved I just felt like obligated to help out.
Yeah.
But also I love spending time with them.
Yeah. And we'd go over there after work. We'd watch Lifetime or whatever they had on. Jeopardy and then whatever.
Yeah.
And it just got
the Hallmark Channel.
The Hallmark Channel. It got to the point where we're like, you know what? We're here every single night. Why don't we just move closer?
Yeah.
So we did. We bought a house.
I was pregnant.
Yes, you were pregnant. You became pregnant at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
February. Yeah.
February. You became pregnant at the beginning of the year, and
I became. It was just magical.
It was magical. Virgin Mary. And,
little stork.
Divine intervention.
Oh, another stork comes at the end. Huh?
Oh yeah, but we don't know. Does a stork come to you?
Anyway.
Yeah. So then we moved closer. And literally a week later, my father died.
Yeah.
And a lot of things changed.
Yeah, it was, it's hard because we kind of went through the plan was to be closer for this, but then once it was like, okay, we know what's coming. Like we knew that he was going to die, and
yeah, it was getting bad.
Yeah, and so knowing that that's where we were at, we also wanted to be closer so that we could be there for your mom to help out, because we knew that it was going to be hard for her, because she went from having a full-time job to being a full-time caretaker, and that is a tough fucking job. And so we knew that she was going to need support.
Yeah.
And so that was part of the reason too behind moving closer, because we knew, and we wanted our kid to be close to their grandparents.
Yeah. Yeah. And, yeah. So, so that in her book, it's very dark, it's not quite the same type of sketchy, but it's very like, it's a similar type of artwork as Frogcatcher.
Yeah.
Very like somebody, some of it is like somebody took a pencil and like was just like scribbling on a page, and
I feel like that you could feel the pain in it. Yeah, for
exactly,
sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of you can see the pain in some of the not photos, but the pictures that she drew.
Right.
But it's, yeah. I mean, talks about how she, gonna miss her father, and looking at his feet and drawing his feet, because once he's gone, you won't have those feet to draw again, things like that. And he was in this coma for a month, and it was very, very, being pregnant. Well, was she pregnant at the time?
She got pregnant, I think a few months.
3 months, I think it was. Yeah, 3 months after, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah. So
after they'd been trying, so it was just like, finally you get pregnant, and it's at like this point where you're at the worst time in your life. And now you have a baby, and you had read about that she had a difficult pregnancy as well, which was quite the opposite for me. I mean, I had easy pregnancy. I love being pregnant.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird considering, who I am, but it just, everything felt good about it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it was, I remember when, it was before Dad started to go downhill again. But when we found out that we were going to have a boy, called him up, and my mother wasn't home, so we told him, and he was really happy.
Yeah.
He was really happy. And
that's kind of that, misogynist.
Well, I think he was happy. He would have been happy either way.
Oh no, for sure.
He would have loved either of our kids.
But his name was going to be passed on, and
he would have loved either of our kids.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
It was just. He loved kids. I mean, when we were kids, he was working.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
Yeah.
He was working. We didn't get a lot of that attention kind of stuff, but I think the kids would have gotten it.
I'm glad that our kids are growing up a little different than we did.
Yes, they're around your parents, and they get to spend some quality.
Well, no, I just meant with their dad.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I had awesome times with my dad. I remember hiking with my dad and playing basketball with my dad, because I was on the basketball team when I was in elementary school, and so I mean, they bought me a basketball hoop, and I'd go out and shoot hoops with my dad. You know, so I had those things that you didn't have with your.
No, exactly. Yeah,
but my dad worked a lot too.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I was there. I remember.
Bet that I was there when you were born.
But Maria's book
okay.
is just, it's a heartbreaking story.
Yeah.
She gets pregnant 3 months. She's going through depression after her dad dies. And then she gets pregnant, grief, all of that. Yeah. And then, and then she has this wonderful thing happen. They're going to have a baby. And
that they've been wanting for, probably years.
Yeah. And then it's not an easy pregnancy.
Yeah.
It's we don't know the whole story.
Yeah.
But it's not easy, and is it the pregnancy or the birth?
Both.
Oh, both.
Yeah. So I mean, I didn't read. You said you read an interview with her or something or maybe it was in that email that she sent. I can't remember the details, but you had said that there was something about a difficult pregnancy. But the birth was difficult, and And I can relate to that. I was one of those people who wanted the home birth experience, and I couldn't have it. So I thought, well, I'll just do it in a hospital and have that. I don't want medication. I don't want an IV. I don't want this. I don't want this. And then, you come in there telling them that, and they kind of laugh at you because they're going to do their job, whether you like it or not, basically.
Yeah.
And so I went through induction for 2 days, and then they're like, yeah, you're not progressing by our timeline. So we're yanking the baby. Yeah. Basically.
Yep.
So, that was traumatic for me. And, I felt like I was failing at something that this is a basic thing. And that's what it felt like. It just felt like a failure. So I remember sitting in the operating room, and I was with this nurse who was the best nurse I had had for those 2 days, who really just seemed to get it. Yeah. And she kept the surgeon came in, and she's like, "Why are we here?" And the nurse says, "Failure, a failure to progress." And she said, "What was that?" And she made her repeat it like 15 times. And like, I'm sitting there, I'm bent over, I got a needle in my back because for the anesthesiologist to put the fucking anyway. And she's just repeating, "Failure to progress, failure to progress." Failure to progress. And I'm like, oh man, this is just such a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
Just like those words are just imprinted in my skull.
I know. And yeah, exactly. They just keep saying it to the point where, you feel that you're a failure.
Yeah.
That it was your fault.
Absolutely.
And then I was there in the operating room.
Mm-hmm.
She pulls the baby out, and she's like, this baby wasn't ready. This baby fucking wasn't ready to come out. And we're like, we thought that the time might have been wrong. We think that the doctor got the due date wrong by a week or two.
Yep.
Baby should have been fucking coming out on his own.
Yeah.
But nothing we could do.
At that point.
Yeah. So I've got something here. The audience, she says, it's my hope that other people who have experienced. Did you read that?
I did not read it, but it's on here. Yeah.
Okay. Deep grief, birth trauma, or postpartum anxiety, and body image issues will feel a little less alone when they read my story. I also hope anyone who reads Liminal State, regardless of their own personal experience, can better understand the isolating journey that the grieving and traumatized often endure.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's currently in print production. It's going to make its world debut at Mice in Cambridge, Massachusetts on October 19th and 20th. And then after its premiere, it'll be available for sale at her website and at various Boston area independent comic book stores. It's 44 pages long in black and white. But it says traumatic birth. So it may be just the birth was traumatic.
Oh, okay. I thought you said that you had read something else.
I don't know. It just says
okay.
Traumatic
birth. I read all that. I didn't see anything about the pregnancy.
Yeah. So, but yes. So I mean, and even though theoretically our birth wasn't traumatic, it was traumatic, especially when they keep saying that, pounding that stuff in your head, and it's major surgery too.
Oh, it was traumatic. Yeah.
I mean, having the baby C-section is not traumatic in itself. I mean, you said that there's lots of people who do it and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna have baby C-section, just pop it out. And,
yeah. Oh yeah. There's people who choose C-section,
exactly.
but when you have there's a lot that goes into it, but yes, also it's major surgery. So when you are when people make it seem like it's just some, and then there's the people in society that tell us that it's not a real birth if it's not, and so
because you didn't,
like, we went through hell. We've been sliced up and stitched back together, and
hopefully properly.
A lot of times there's blood loss and all kinds of issues that can happen, and and then to be turned around and told that you didn't have a real birth because you had a C-section. It's like, you've got to be kidding. And we spend even longer in the hospital. You risk infection and all kinds of stuff. And it's, it's just, I can't imagine, it's hard to explain to people, and it's so frustrating because a lot of times when women try and talk about it, when we try and say, this was traumatic for me, they're like, well, you have a healthy baby, so I don't know what you're complaining about, essentially.
Yep.
And so when people are saying, okay, but I'm hurting, and yes, I have a healthy baby, and yes, that's awesome. There's just so much more to it that we need to be exploring and we need to be talking about, and the lack of access to therapists and counselors. I mean, I don't know how anybody can have a birth go, like any failure to progress parent should immediately be given a counselor to speak to after the baby is born to evaluate, where are you? How are you processing this? I mean, God, everybody should have a freaking counselor all the time. Like everybody should be talking to somebody about stuff, but especially something like this, because you go from, this is my expectation to something completely different.
But I want to go back to her art just for a minute. It is very dark in some parts.
Yeah.
I mean, really black and dark. Somebody that was experiencing a lot of grief. That I mean, it looks like something that honestly,
the emotions really come through.
It looks like something that you would see honestly in somebody that had been in a hospital that was trying to cope with things, and they were using art as a way to try and express their feelings. That's really what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a way. I think it's just a way to show, like to feel the way that the artist was feeling.
Yes, you can feel it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let me ask you. I mean, we moved a week later. My dad died, and a month later we had our baby.
Yeah.
What kind of feelings were you going through? Was it a lot? The same?
Oh, of course it was.
I don't know if we even ever discussed.
I'm sure we didn't, because there was just so much, and part of me is, I'm becoming a parent for the first time and entering into this whole new world that you think is going to go one way and it's something completely different, and then struggling with breastfeeding afterwards, and feeling like a failure on top of a failure, and not being able to help out my mother-in-law in the way that I wanted to, and not seeing her, and thinking about the pain that she is in and how I want to help her with that pain, and not being able to because I'm dealing with my own grief and my own shit, and just all of it piled on top of each other. And then within a year you were diagnosed with cancer, and that
less than a year.
Yeah. And that was just another strike.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Maria talks about all these things that happened within a year. We had the same shit. I mean, my dad died in October 30th, I think it was.
Yep.
29th, 30th.
29th.
November 18th, our son was born.
Yep.
And the following July, I was diagnosed with cancer. I mean, it's like, what the fuck, man? It was a lot in less than a year.
Yeah.
And then we had months of, going back and forth. That's a whole nother show itself. But it's just so much. It was just more than we, for a young family with all these things that happened. It was just a lot a lot for us to process, and I didn't have time.
And not even giving. I mean, we didn't. Again, I can't stress enough how ridiculous it is, the access to mental health assistance. There's
there's one other thing to throw in there. I got a new job too after this. I started a new job in November or December, which took us right through the cancer thing, because they fired me a week before my surgery.
Right.
But I mean, so all of this, it was like a traumatic year for us.
Right.
And some of it I didn't process for a long time.
Right.
They were like years. Some of it I didn't even realize until you told me some of the things that you experienced.
That you should have been. Okay.
That you know that you
until you told me what I should feel, and then I realized.
then I realized I should have been scared. But
Well, I mean, you were raised with the belief that you were a man and that you had to act like a man, and men don't show their feelings.
I don't even know it was that. But I mean, some of the things that you went through, with a baby less than a year old, and taking care of me. I mean, it's a lot. You were a young woman.
Yes,
young mother,
and you don't. Yeah, thank you. You don't. If you don't talk about what you're feeling, and you don't have anybody to process through those things, then, and like, I think a lot of it for us was like, I'm feeling this thing. I don't want my partner to feel this thing. So I shouldn't talk to them about this thing, because then it's just going to get worse. When in actuality, had we discussed it with each other, Like if I had said to you, I'm really scared, you're going in for surgery, I don't know what's going to happen, then you would have said, I'm scared too. And then we could have talked about it more. But instead we were
probably.
like, I was like, I'm scared, I'm terrified, I'm gonna, I have a baby that's less than a year old, I'm gonna lose my partner, he's gonna die in surgery, and then what am I gonna do? And I'm all these things going through my head. And I told myself that I wasn't allowed to talk to you about it because I knew that you must be feeling scared too if I was. Yeah. And if I wasn't that rock for you, then what a shitty partner I was. And it was like, we should have just been we should have just gone to fucking therapy.
I know, but you were so strong for me. It was you helped me so much. It was amazing. But
anyway,
yeah, it was a really good Maria's book, Liminal State. Awesome book.
Yes, loved it. I think that we really need to reach out to her and just have a conversation with her, because I would just love to hear more about her story.
Yeah, so I think we'll definitely we'll reach out to her maybe after the book comes out, October.
And if you're listening and you are one of these people who've had a C-section that you didn't feel good about, and people wouldn't let you talk about it because they said, well, you have a healthy baby, find your people. Find people to talk to about it, because, the way you feel about your birth matters. It matters a lot. It can affect you for years. And, you could clearly, Maria's got struggles beyond just the C-section, but still, there's so many more people out here who are struggling, who suffer in this way. And I think that it's really important to reach out and find your people to talk to about it, because they are out there. I went on to have an HBAC, which is a home birth after cesarean.
Which was fucking amazing.
It was fucking amazing, but it was also traumatizing in its own way.
It was that whole thing was scary. The whole pregnancy and everything scared me all the way along.
Yeah. Anyway, not to go off topic, but it's find your people. When I was going through that process, when I was pregnant, I found other moms who had been there, and so many moms. Some of them were like, yeah, I had a C-section. It wasn't the best thing, but I needed it or whatever. But now I would like to have my next baby naturally. And that's fine. That's not who we're talking about. We're talking about the people who were struggling, who didn't want the birth to happen that way, and who are still, facing the traumatic shit that goes on in their heads afterwards. And it's just, it's hard. And when you turn to somebody who maybe they just haven't been there, or maybe they have been there and they just don't feel the same way as you, and they just shut you down, then you feel like you're wrong for feeling the way you do. But you're not wrong. Hey, if you have a partner who had a C-section, talk to them. Find out how they feel about about their birth. Maybe they'll say, I feel great about it. It was perfect. It was what I needed. And that's awesome. That's great. That's what we want. Yep. We want people to feel good about the way that they give birth, because it just makes life so much easier.
I agree. And wow, this is something that you're very passionate about, and you've spent years in this and talking about it and everything.
Yes,
so yes. That's why it's something important and close to your heart.
Can you tell? Am I getting a little too chatty about it?
No, not at all. It's awesome. It's awesome. But I think this was a good show. I hope that we reach some people, and check out these books. 4 great books this week that look really good. And again, my name is Mike.
And I'm Parker.
And this is the Graphic Novel Podcast.
We covered some deep and dark topics today, and I just want to make a note that if you are feeling suicidal, I want you to reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline in the U.S. You can call 1-800-273-8255. You can go online to suicidepreventionlifeline.org. You can chat with them online. Confidential help is always available and for free. You are not alone.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.